Beverly. Beverly says hi to Donna. Good morning, Kristen. Nice to see you all. Let me introduce to you our speaker for today. Donna Bohannon was born and grew up in Washington, D.C. She is a proud Washingtonian. She is a graduate of the Catholic University of America with a BA in politics and a concentration in American government. Her interest in public service led to a career with the federal government, the majority of which was spent at the U.S. Department of State, where she worked in both the civil service in the Office of the Chief Financial Officer and in the Foreign Service as Deputy Director of the Financial Management Center at the U.S. Embassy in Abidjan, Côte d'Ivoire. She retired in 2019 in pursuit of a new career. Donna is an experienced financial manager and federal grant policy expert in the international environment and a highly effective communicator. Her passion for and curiosity about people, history, and culture has inspired her to travel around the world, most recently to Benin and Togo. Donna currently serves as the chair of the Black History Committee of the Friends of the Thomas Balch Library in Leesburg and is a member. She is an appointed member of the Thomas Balch Library Advisory Commission and the Loudoun County Heritage Commission. Donna has lived in Loudoun County with her husband and 2 children for 24 years, and I am pleased to know her daughter, E. Marie, who was in my 8th grade classroom about 10 years ago. So we are happy to have Donna with us this morning.
Thank you for the welcome. You know, I was going to mention, in case Mrs. Mineland didn't say it, that my daughter was in her 8th grade class, and quite honestly, Ms. Mineland was that teacher that really mattered to her. So we can talk about that sometime later. But I do want to thank you for the invitation to speak today, because I feel a special connection to the theme, I Hear You. It reminds me of what I heard Oprah Winfrey say that still resonates with me. She said, when people interact with one another, we desire to be acknowledged. And subconsciously, we ask 3 questions. Do you see me? Do you hear me? Do I matter? This piece of Loudoun County history matters deeply to me. It is a story of Black men taking action. Because you see, in 1883 here in Loudoun County, 20 years after the emancipation of enslaved people, here where the majority of the population were Confederate sympathizers, and 6 years after Reconstruction ended, with Reconstruction being a period intended to uplift Blacks through education, provide the ability for Black men to vote, and establish basic rights as guaranteed through the 14th and 15th Amendments to the Constitution. These times were also we see a rise in voter suppression, intimidation, punishment without benefit of a fair legal process, and then violence, including lynching. But in 1883, here in Loudoun County, something significant happened. 17 Black men representing various African American communities met, agreed to, and then wrote an eloquent petition that was sent to Loudoun County Judge requesting recognition of their rights to do 2 things. To serve as jurors, you know, that concept of having the right to be tried by a jury of your peers. And 2, to serve as judges of election. Again, following through on that concept of being able to ensure that every vote counts. So do you think the judge heard them? The answer may surprise you, but then again, maybe not. As reported in the Loudoun Times-Mirror at the time, the judge agreed to the right to serve as jurors, but not the right to be election officials. But although that right to serve as jurors or on juries was recognized, an African American was not entered into a jury pool into 1935. And by the way, he was not selected to serve. So much for a jury of your peers. But think about this. Did the judge hear them? And did it matter? Now I have a question for you. As I'm standing here, you see me, and I see you. Well, I see most of you. But do you hear me? Do you hear the pride I have as a Black woman sharing this history about not one, not two, but 17 Black men, telling a story that defies the stereotypical negative narrative about them? Can you relate to how I recognize their bravery and the advocacy taken to be seen, heard, and matter in 1883? Do you perceive how I recognize in these men qualities I have seen in my grandfather, father, husband, son, and good friends like Ron Campbell and Philip Thompson? Do you hear in this story what I hear? Examples of upstanding citizens that helped in the emergence of Loudoun County by being leaders in their communities, from the over 20 African American communities, 16 churches, 4 fraternal and mutual aid societies established by 1883. Despite repressive conditions, they engaged in advocating for justice and the betterment of their community. 2 did so in politics. 2 aided the Union forces, one as a Union guide, and the other as an informant during the Civil War. 3 became founding members of the Emancipation Association, an organization established in 1890 to advance economic and education equality as a means to bring about social justice. So, do you see me? Do you hear me? And does what I just shared with you today matter? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Donna. We're delighted to have you, and as you have called us to worship here with what you've shared, we're going to now express that worship